Hello, hello, good morning, and welcome to the International Mastermind Association Think and Grow Rich show. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist and host of the award-nominated podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. I'm just so excited to be hanging out here today as we continue to deep dive into this book, Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill in 1937. And today is going to be a masterclass conversation about the mystery of sex transmutation. Yes, we're going to talk about sex. Before I bring in my co-host, before I bring in the people who are going to help me dive deeper into this principle, I want to read something from the text itself, because Napoleon Hill says that when driven by his desire to please a woman based upon the motive of sex alone, a man may steal, cheat, and even commit murder. But when the emotion of love is mixed in with the emotion of sex, the same man will guide his actions with more sanity, balance, and reason. So with that, I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna bring it. Dr. Peter James, how you doing, man? What's going on?
Galen, good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Peter A. James. Excited to be here with you all. I am the Shift Your Mindset Guru. Yes, I'm saying it, Shift Your Mindset Guru. And as we talk about this sex transmutation process there, Galen, I wonder how that can tie back to our business, back to our career, because I know you started out with wooing a female or wooing another individual, but I wonder what it would look like to woo clients, woo the organization you want to work for, woo the outcome that you desire for your life, your career, and your business. Ooh, we are getting deep into sexual transmutation. Yes, not just sex transmutation, sexual transmutation today. There, Galen. Excited for this.
You kind of get kind of tongue tied there, Peter. Get kind of tongue
Maybe
tied.
it's the word. Maybe it's the word, man. I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Well, Miss Ann McNeil, come on in. How are you doing? And what are your thoughts about today's topic?
Galen, Galen, and everybody that's listening. I always like to start with a question. And my question relative to the principle today is how do you, each one of you, how do you transmute your energy from one form to the other? That's the subject. It's a subject of transmutation. So, how do you transmute your energy from one form to another? For example, Galen has a very special item that he's going to discuss with us today, and he's going to share how he is transmuting that energy from one form. Go back to what Dr. Peter James said about how do you woo your clients. And Galen's desire today, through sex transmutation, of course, is to woo all of you to do something special today. So again, Galen, that's how I look at this subject, and it's very exciting. And many of you will then begin to learn why I wear bright colors. Yes. Let's get this party started. I'm excited.
Let's get this party started. Exactly. Let's get in, and I want to start us out the right way, and that's by checking out this video that puts the entire philosophy into context, the context of how everything works together. Because when you think about the portion that I shared with you at the beginning, it's when the emotion of sex is transmuted but combined with this desire. It's got to be combined with desire. By itself, yeah, there can be some temporal things that you get out of it, but it doesn't have the same power as when it's combined with love or desire. So I really want you to think about this as Ms. Ann takes us through the this video for the 13 principles. think about how everything combines together. And talk us through the significance of this video.
Well, first, you teed it up, Galen, because regardless of which principle we're discussing, whether it is the transmutation of the energy, whether it is the subconscious mind, especially, it doesn't matter which principle we're discussing. They all start with principle number one. And as you shared, principle number one speaks to the desire. What is it that you want? What is it that you desire? It doesn't always have to be money, except for some of us, we find that that desire for a specific amount of money helps us to become that which we must become in order to attract that amount of money. But then when you move from the desire principle, and it depending upon which book or which process you use, the next step is the faith that is required to move that desire to the next level. And from your faith, we talk about the affirmations, the autosuggestions, the prayers, the cantations, whatever it is that you use that works for you to draw that which you desire. And of course, I could walk through all 13 of these, but I won't do that today because I cannot begin to touch or scratch the surface of what the video will do. So what I'd like to encourage all of you to do is make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's number one. But also, while the video is playing, text, comment, share this podcast on your social media so that people who are following you can also be encouraged and inspired by this information. So Galen, let's run the video.
Number one is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step two is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step three is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number four is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number five is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step six, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number seven is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right. Well, that is never a dull time watching and listening to that video. Before we get back into this conversation with Miss Ann McNeil, the Master Wealth Builder, and Dr. Peter James, the Shift Your Mindset Guru, I just want to acknowledge the folks that are watching us live on YouTube. And just welcome. We've got a lot of our regulars, our regular heavy hitters. Ms. Doretha Dennis, thank you so much for always being part of our community. Carla Hill, I see you. Velin Whitfield, Arnold, Aniki Arnold. See, Imelda Wallace and Wyman Winbush. Thank you guys for joining us. I see you, Shannon Charlton. You guys, please hit that thumbs up icon underneath the video to make sure that the internet and YouTube knows that we're talking about something that's going to help people advance their goals and dreams. And again, I want to come back to you, Dr. Peter, because this idea of sex transmutation, for me, this really speaks to not necessarily what you do, but how you do it. How do you add a certain energy to what you're doing? That same kind of energy that comes natural to us when we're in pursuit of sex or in pursuit of the admiration of a particular person. But we tend to forget about that energy when it comes to doing something else that we desire. What's an example of something that you found greater success when you put that energy, that kind of that suave alpha energy that you carry? How does that help you achieve some of the things that you're doing now?
Oh wow, you brought in some passionate stuff there for me there, Galen. As I was reflecting on where I use it the most, and I'll be honest with you, it's as you reflect, we all, I think, in some area of our life, we we have an area where we use this sex transmutation and we don't even realize it. I know two specific places that I utilize it that it exudes that much more. When I'm in front of a classroom teaching, number one, or if I'm in front of the audience presenting. And what I notice with myself is that I've been doing it for quite some time now, but I build up that anticipation, that energy to be able to deliver the message that I desire to deliver in an effective and efficient manner. I know that I need to be able to connect with the audience. I know that I need to be able to pull them in, have them react, have them interact, have them ask questions. but how do I go about doing so? How are we able to pull them in? What are the strategies and techniques to be able to, as I said earlier, woo them into wanting to have a conversation that they didn't know they wanted to have? That's a unique example of what this sex transmutation looks like. And Napoleon Hill does a great job of trying to explain it in this chapter. But explaining it and reading it is one thing. Going out and putting it into action is a total other area. Another area that I'm one more, Galen, and I know you would be able to relate with this one. When you have a great coaching engagement, think about that. That coaching engagement that you walk away from, and that client of yours got that aha moment, and there was a shift. There was a shift in their demeanor. There is a shift in their thought process. There was that, oh, wow, I didn't know I'd do that, or I need to do this. Those three areas, there's nothing like it walking away from and feeling empowered. Huh. Kind of like after you have doing the X's and O's there, Galen.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point, and I'll tell you. For me, you talked about those moments where how you do it, the energy
Yeah.
that you bring to it is different, and and I talk about during coaching. There's a moment where you can see as a coach, you can see where the client needs to go. You can see the area that they've been avoiding, and you could tell them, look, you need to
Mm,
do this, this, or this, or you could find a more subtle way to ask them a question. Hey, what's your reflection on this?
mm,
What this is kind of what I'm seeing. What are your thoughts? And it's that energy that comes with the question that usually brings the insight. We may end up in the same place. We may end up in a different place, but it's the energy behind the question that I find
mm, mm.
always fascinating in my coaching,
And
in my
maybe that's
coaching.
what, and maybe that, and maybe Galen, that's what it is. It's that underlying energy that kind of persists. It's like right below the surface of this
Yeah,
dialogue, and it's not right in your face, but you kind of got to go get it. The client's got to go get it in order to run with it. And if the client is all in on the session, they'll be able to get it and run with it and and discover extraordinary outcomes as a result of them stepping into that partnership or that vault, as I call it.
absolutely,
Okay, you got me
absolutely.
warmed up. Sorry, Ann McNeil. I'm sorry. We got caught up in this a little bit here.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm gonna come back to Ann because this is a question I've been hinting around and I've been trying to get to for the past 5 or 6 years that we've been hanging out, Ann. So I'm just gonna ask you, Ms. Ann, how do you do what you do? Because I kind of understand what you do. I don't understand fully how do you do what's the energy that you bring to how you do what you do, and how does that energy make you so successful?
Thank you for the question, Galen. I really want to go back to the 10 stimuli that Napoleon Hill talks about in terms of how do we transmute our energy. So when you ask me the question, it is all about the burning desire to be. We can do and we can have, but what about being? And one of my favorite stories in this particular principle is centered around Mr. Gates, Dr. Gates, who, as many of you would remember, he was paid millions of dollars to sit for ideas. So for me, Galen, when you ask me the question, how do I do what I do? Oftentimes, many people don't realize that this is not a destination for me. It is a journey. And that journey started in 1979 when I picked up a copy of this book, Tattered and Torn. I have 4 or 5 copies. But when I began to answer the questions from Napoleon Hill about Anne McNeil, how much money do you want? That question has created 5 businesses from that one page, 5. And how did those 5 businesses come about? Coming back to your question, I wrote this book called A Daily Date with Myself. This book was written from Dr. Gates sitting for ideas. In this particular principle, he talks about the fact that he sat in a room, no light, just a table and a pen and a pad. I do that every single day, 1-2 hours a day, reading 10 to 12 different books, a page, a paragraph, a line sometimes. And so because I go back to the first question, how much money do you want? Well, that amount of money started as $1,000 a year, but it took me 10 years to get out of debt. Now it's $1,000 a day passive, which now elevates the energy that I must bring. Now we're talking about sex transmutation. And a lot of times we focus so much on the word sex, but we don't put as much energy and focus on the transmutation of the energy. How do you, each that's listening to us, how do you transmute this energy? And depending upon the book you have, go to what Napoleon Hill says. He says, first, I'm answering your question. He said, first, you must have a desire to express this energy. Second, love. Third, a burning desire for fame, power, or financial gain. For me, it was financial gain. It was not the other. Okay. 4, music. These are the 10 stimuli that stimulate all of us. 5, close friendship. 6, a mastermind alliance. That's what we do here every Saturday. 7, mutual suffering. And for those of us that are Black and women in construction in particular, which is one of my organizations, that's mutual suffering. 8, autosuggestion. 9, fear. And number 10, narcotics. So going back to your question, Galen, for me, it is being very clear and very intentional about how do I serve my clients. You talked earlier about, no, maybe it was Dr. Peter that talked about transmutation of the energy to support our clients. So it is about studying this energy transmutation form for me, Galen. And I do want to bring up something that we talked about earlier before the podcast started, and that is the fact that the 3 of us have been masterminding now for over 5 years, and we come here 52 weeks. Yes, 52 weeks, 1, 2, or 3 of us. We bring guests, but sometimes we do what we're doing today, which is a master class, which is to drill down in this philosophy and to this particular principle. But each one of us have embarked upon a journey as we learn how to transmute this energy. And we talked about the journey that you're on in particular, Galen, and now how you now have learned, or you're learning, it's a process, of how to transmute your energy from one form to now, let's go back to the 10 stimuli, fame and power from your podcast. Where did that come from? But it was not an overnight success. It was a small amount of energy over a long period of time. So when people ask me the question that you asked, Galen, what a lot of time people don't understand, I do the exact same thing every single day, every week, every month. You can take my calendar and you can go back, because Facebook, give you a year ago what you were doing years ago. You can take my calendar and a certain week of a certain month, every single year, you can go back and you will see I did the exact same thing. I went to the exact same place. I met with the exact same people. But what happens is that people see you, Galen, they see you, they see Dr. Peter, and they see me, and they think that it's all of that. It's not. It is that we're still learning how do we transmute this energy. But I go back to the desire. It's got to be focused on that desire. So that's it for me.
I love it. I love it. There's so much in what you just shared, and how you can take the smallest elements of this principle, and if you really commit yourself to what you're trying to accomplish, you can build businesses just from the smallest elements of the concept. And then as I was thinking about those 10 stimuli and the podcast, one of the things that I did want to do in this podcast, in the Whiskey Jazz and Leadership podcast, that I didn't do in the first podcast, is I wanted to create an environment that was more relaxed, that was almost more sexy. Now that I think about it, um, it's centered around alcohol, right? Not everyone is drinking alcohol, but I highlight something every episode. But it's about creating that environment so that people would feel more comfortable with giving and providing the insights that I was looking for, as opposed to in my first podcast, the Leadership Toolbox, we were just getting right to the point. Here's what you need to hear. Here's what you need to know. Let's talk about that. So as I think about what you were sharing, Ms. Ann, there is again the same desire, but the way we're going about it, the energy that's around it is showing up differently.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah, and we're in pursuit of more influence in the community.
Yeah, I want to add something. And if for those of you that have the book and you listen to us every week, if you go to page 194, depending upon what version you're in, what Galen is sharing, he talks about, the author talks about in this book, he said, genius is developed through the sixth sense. Now, what Galen just shared, how he sat here for years reading this principle every single month and discussing it. And I want to use him as an example. If you drop down to where the author says, when ideas or concepts flash into one's mind, what is popularly called a hunch, they come from one or more of the following sources. Now, what our desire is here today, all of you that's listening, is to help you understand, how do you tap into this energy? What do? You get a hunch. So Galen had a hunch. His first podcast didn't really sit as well as it could, it should. But what I remember, Galen, was this. I remember you liked jazz and you talked about your favorite jazz people as we would come on month to month, but you also liked a certain kind of drink. Come on now. But also, your business is about leadership. So, hence, he then takes a principle called synthetic imagination. Come on, somebody. The specialized knowledge in each of those three areas. And through what Napoleon Hill calls the creative imagination, which functions best when the mind is operating or functioning, concentrating, vibrating at a very high rate, at a level of intensity and awareness that is significantly higher than that of an ordinary thought. This is how you do it. Let's focus not so much on the first word as much as the second word, the transmutation of the energy. So using Galen as an example, he was able to transmute his energy. We could use Dr. Peter James with his business, come on, somebody, right, Dr. James? And
Yeah,
he's doing the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
yeah. I was just gonna say I don't know if we've got enough time to go through all of Peter's businesses. But Peter, yeah, I would love for you to get into how do those principles, as you reflect. I don't know if you've ever reflected, like I never really reflected on how these principles came together in some of the things that I'm doing. As you reflect on all the things that you're doing, how do you see these principles adding to or influencing your success?
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up there, Ann McNeil, as well as Galen. I want to first acknowledge Carla in the chat on YouTube, and Carla references the famous sales and personal trainer Brian Tracy. And one of the quotes that I love from Brian Tracy is that, especially when he talks about sales, and we all know here on this podcast, we know that when you're in sales, it is a lot of sex transmutation. And why? Because you are really trying to connect with your potential customer or your customer. And Brian Tracy says, approach each customer with the idea of helping him or her solve a problem or achieve a goal, not to sell a product or or sell a service. So I wonder if we looked at it from a perspective of connecting with that individual and identify what is their problem or what are they they're trying to overcome or what is their goal that they're trying to reach for, and how might I and my product or service allow them to get there, help them to get there more expeditiously and more efficiently. And now, if we go back to our own selves, those of you who are listening, reflect on that for your own perspective, in your own career, in your own business. What problem are you solving? How are you connecting with the individual or individuals on the other end to help them overcome that problem? And so now going back to the stuff that I do in almost all areas of my career, whether it is in the real estate or into my coaching and consulting practice, or Galen, even with Power Moments, what we are trying to do is solve a problem for our potential clients or our clients. And not even just solve the problem, help them get to their next or best level that sometimes they don't even know that is possible. And for me, when they are on that journey or getting there, I'm in a place of euphoria, for lack of a better word. And I'm almost feeling that way, even for going back to the real estate. I have some properties for my tenants who are very grateful for the type of living arrangements that they have. It's very similar to what I described from that euphoric moment. And again, those of you who are listening and watching, what does that look like for you? How do you get there? And how might you be able to help the world in the process? Powerful, Galen. Powerful.
I love it, man. And when I was thinking about you, about listening to you, I was thinking about something else that you and I have done together, and that is that Own Your Career Challenge, where we tried to anticipate what the needs might be out there for people to step into their careers more fully.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about how that was built out of trying to serve a need.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much for bringing that. And for those of you who are watching, you don't even know what we're talking about. Galen and I have put together a process, a coaching process that is just called Own Your Career Challenge, the Own Your Career Challenge. And in this challenge, we are asking all of you who are out there, your career may be pretty good, but I wonder what it would look like to get even better. And let me even ask it a different way. Are you thinking big enough? And if you're not, what's possible? What's possible? And you know, Galen, we started out trying to anticipate based on our knowledge and our experience. We tried to anticipate what we saw from our previous clients that we could apply here. But now what we're doing is we're asking potential clients, hey, what do you need? What do you need to get to your next level or to get to those heights that you've never thought of? What might it look like for you to be able to own your career? And towards the end of today's session, we'll put out the link and everything like that, Galen. But it's powerful for you to be able to drive your career instead of someone else driving it for you.
Mm, mm. Yeah, that is really, really important. How do you shift what you normally think of as being the narrative where your employer owns your career, they own your employment? And how do you shift that to where employment just happens to be a tool that you own? And I hear a lot of that in today's topic.
Hey, Galen,
Uh,
tell that story really quickly, if you could, about when you were in the corporate and you shifted how you thought about the relationship there, and maybe how sex transmutation might have played into that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. I spent 30 years in corporate America trying to become senior vice president of sales for a Fortune 500 company. And 22 of those years were at Coca-Cola North America. And it became really, really clear that the challenge of becoming senior vice president of sales was about more than just my ability to deliver results. And that there are many people before me who had tried and not succeeded. And so I had to shift my thinking from being an employee of the Coca-Cola company to one where I had more ownership. And so I literally made the statement to myself, I am no longer an employee of the Coca-Cola company. I am the CEO of Galen Bingham Incorporated, and Coca-Cola just happens to be one of my clients. At the time, it happened to be my only client. But I had to, when I made that shift to, um, I'm in control of what I do and how I show up, and the things that would go into running a business, such as marketing, such as operations, such as finance, I started thinking in those terms. That made all the difference in the world. Quite honestly, I started performing better, and I started enjoying it more because I took ownership of my career.
Love that. Love it.
So, Anna, I want to come back to you because we're talking about the importance of mindset and being able to shift your mindset. And even scripture talks a lot about, and I'm going to paraphrase this, not seeing things the way that they are, but seeing things the way that you want them to be, or seeing things from a spiritual eye as opposed to a physical eye. What are some things that you do to maintain this elevated mindset, shifting your mindset from what your normal reactions might be to what you think that they should be in order to help you achieve your goals? How do you do that?
In my hand, I have Lynn Whitfield. I know you're driving, so you cannot see this. But to answer his question, Lynn Whitfield, in my hand, I have a copy of my journal. It is called My Daily Date with Myself. The answer to the question, Galen, is this. Every day I start with my desire. Every day I rise very early. And for those of you that's interested, we have a mastermind group called Early Risers. I'll drop the link in the chat. No, let's do this. If you're interested in joining our Early Risers mastermind group and you're listening on YouTube, just put 1 in the chat, just the number 1. And Galen's smiling because he's in the group sometimes. We don't talk, we don't smiley face, we don't do nothing but just type the word UP up. And what that does, Galen, is it is a reminder to get up and get to working on whatever it is that I desire. So for me, I start with meditation, prayer, reading, journaling. This journal book, like I said, that came from Mr. Gates. Over the years, what I began to realize, Galen, is that as I would journal, I would ask the Spirit, give me 10 opportunities today. Sometimes I get 15, sometimes I get 5. Most times I get 10 and I stop. I would write 2 to 3 things that I'm thankful for, 2 to 3 things that I'm grateful for. But what are the desires of my heart? And it's interesting you ask this question because years ago, and these are just blank line opportunities, lessons learned. Years ago, I would pray every Monday, how am I going to meet payroll this week? How am I going to meet? And so using this process, I would come up with ideas. But then I had to come up with a plan to execute the ideas. One of the other areas in this journal I have is what are the desires of my heart that are fulfilled? Because years of God coming through and making a way, Galen, to hit that payroll from $1,000 a week to sometimes $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a week, not knowing where it would come from, I realized that I had been asking, but I never said thank you. So I would go back and I would say thank you for my desire of my heart being fulfilled. So for me, Galen, it is a date with myself. Yes, I'm married to my boyfriend, but those of us who may be single or married, it doesn't matter. When do you invest time with yourself, by yourself, early in the morning, in the still of the morning, when it's quiet? I mean, to me, Galen, I cannot wait oftentimes to wake up. I cannot wait to wake up. I exercise 30, sometimes 45 an hour, 7 days a week. Why? Because we talk about the transmutation of the energy, but if the body is not able to carry the energy, what's it for? So I'm just very excited about this subject because I think, again, when we talk about the transmutation of the energy, how do you do it? This author gives us a lot of different ways. He gives us examples of different individuals. And the only thing I've done, Galen, is that I've actually implemented what he has said over and over and over again. 5 different businesses since 1979. And Nito Cobain told me something years ago that I have been using. He said, Ann, you do so many things. Learn how to become intentionally congruent. So everything you do relates and connects to everything else you do. When you're speaking on one business, share how it connects with all the other businesses. So Galen, for me, that's what I do. And again, I read in every area. I connect my businesses per industry in every area, but it didn't all happen overnight. It's just a function of time. So that's, for me, that's how I transmute this energy.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I want to come to you, Peter, for
Yeah.
you to talk about this annual meeting. But something, Ann, that you said, a couple things that you said just really hit me hard. Number one, you said that some things it's a function of time, and even Napoleon Hill talks about in this chapter of sex transmutation, it takes time. Usually, people don't have real success until they've been doing this for a bit because they need to learn what works, what doesn't work. They need to learn how to put their energy into it. They need to learn how to play like themselves, as Miles Davis talked about. And so that's one thing that really jumped into me. And then also, I love the way you just reinforced. You've created 5 business by using the same dadgum 6 principles, right? It's
Right.
it's it's really about this. How can you master the simplicity? Extraordinary people are people who do the ordinary, they just do it extra, right? It's not about doing all this amazing fancy stuff. Can you do the ordinary extra? That's what's going to help you become extraordinary. So, Dr. Peter, come on in and talk about this annual meeting. I mean, of all the meetings that we go to, all the meetings that you go to, we're always traveling to go to meetings. Why is this meeting a worthwhile meeting to add to your calendar?
Yeah, thanks for the asking though, Galen. Before I dive on into this Think and Grow Rich annual accountability meeting, one thing I want to remind everyone is that how you go, your journey to success, your journey, whatever your journey is going to look different than my journey. There may be some similarities, but the overall journey is going to be different. And this sex transmutation journey, as even you've heard from myself and Galen and Ann McNeil, is totally different. And that's okay. That's okay. But now, how can you utilize these principles for your own journey? And now as we take that step back, I really wanted to tie this back to this annual meeting, which I go to on a regular basis to strengthen my journey, right? My journey, as Peter James knows it, not Galen's journey. I got to focus on mine. And meeting with these individuals at the very least on an annual basis allows me to, if I may have been off center, to get back on center, to get back on the track in order to move the process, move my journey, evolve the process as it needs to move. And not even just the business, but also my life in so many other areas. My health, as Amy McNeil had described a little bit earlier, how I'm exercising, how I'm taking care of my retirement and my family, all of these different areas, not just business, not just career. So for those of you, again, who are watching and have never thought about doubling down on what you do as opposed to just living life just to live it. If you really want to be fulfilled, fulfill your purpose, I encourage you to take a look at this Think and Grow Rich accountability meeting that meets on January 3rd and 4th this year back in Boca Raton, Florida. We look forward to seeing you there. Galen, I'm sure you're going to be there.
Oh man, I've already got my ticket, my registration ticket. I've already got my airline ticket. I've already booked my hotel. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. And yeah, and I want to come back to you because again, I was just thinking about the real magic of that annual meeting. Is there is power in thinking about your goals. There is power in actually thinking about what do I want to accomplish. You add to that power when you write down your goals, right? That's the first step of making something a reality if you can write it down. And then if you really want to supercharge your goals, you're actually going to tell someone who's going to hold you accountable for doing the things that you say that you're going to do in order to achieve your goals. And in this annual meeting, you require that people do all three before they show up. If you show up, I don't care if you bought your airline ticket, if you bought your hotel, but you haven't thought about your goals, you haven't written down your goals, and you're not prepared to tell someone about your goals, you're going to have a problem right there at the gate. So I think that there's some magic associated with how you have structured that annual meeting because it's not a conference. I think I've been 5 years. I haven't gotten one goodie bag. There's no swag bag associated with this annual meeting.
Can I get a swag bag this year?
I think I should get a swag bag.
She's real quiet on that there, Galen. I don't know what that's about.
No, I want to speak to that, but Galen, you said something while you were talking to Dr. Peter James and I talked earlier about the number of books. We have 10 categories for those of you that may be listening to us for the first time that we mastermind, going to Galen's point. We mastermind in 10 different areas of our lives. The spiritual goals that he's referring to. This is how you transmute the energy. Family goals, financial goals, health goals, education goals, personal development goals, your profession or your business goals, your recreational goals, your civic goals, and your creative goals. We ask you to write your goals for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. For me, I have goals of what will I do when I'm 92. And I wrote those when I was 42. But Galen said something that I wanted to share. I went and I got the copy of this book. It's called, can you read that?
Yes.
For those of you that may be driving or not able to read it, this book is called Extraordinary Transformation, and it is by Dr. Nito Quabain.
Oh my.
And when I tell you, Galen, you didn't realize, which is I don't think you realized when you said extraordinary, basic transformation in terms of becoming. Dr. Nito Quabain became president of High Point University. And as a professional speaker, and I quote him oftentimes, but what he did was show us an example. How do you transmute your energy? He graduated from High Point University. He ended up going back to become president, not desiring to, but what he is currently doing is he took this university, let's say, and Dr. Peter, you can appreciate this. Right now, they've invested over $3 billion in this university. He has added 110 additional buildings. He has added over 50 different educational schools inside the university, and I can go on and on. But it is the transmutation of the energy to become not just ordinary, but extraordinary. And this is a transformation when we each learn how to do what Dr. Gates did. Take that energy and focus it like a laser on one thing. Galen and Peter and I met as a part of Black NSA $1 Million Mastermind. And if you're not in and you haven't been, it's closed right now, but join the organization and see about coming and joining us in the spring. But we're learning how do we mastermind this energy on one thing. One thing. And for me, that's all I do. 5, 10, 15 different books. But if I read 1 page a day, this is not a heavy lift. 1 page a day, and maybe 1 or 2 books. I have a book that I'm in with Emerson. I've been in that book 5 years. It's all of his essays compiled in 1 book. 5 years I've been in the same book. And many of you've heard me talk about this. I can be on 1 sentence, Galen, for a week. And most recent sentence is the fact that he says, thoughts are the property of those only who can entertain them. Thoughts, Dr. Peter, they are the property only of those who can entertain them. What in the world does that mean? Thoughts, I see your face, Dr. Peter.
Yeah.
Thoughts are the property of those only who can entertain them. I get chills every time I think about it. It took me 1 week to research why Emerson said that. And you know what I'm learning? That when I have a thought, it should not be fleeting. That's why I created this journal to write down my thoughts, to write down my ideas. And later on, I'll come back and gather them versus the sticky notes, versus a pad, a book, all of these things all over the place. But gather your thoughts like you gather your money, like your friends. Gather your thoughts like you gather your money, like your friends and your family, your loved ones. This is how we transfer the energy. And then once you have a thought, focus your energy on that thought. The next day and the next day and the next day. And that is how Galen was able to go from a thought about his favorite drink to then his favorite coaching subject, leadership, to then his favorite jazz artist. And now, intentional congruence, Nito Cobain, he was able to mix those things together, synthetic imagination, and voila. Now he is in the running and the competition. So the question for each of us, going back to what Emerson said, if you cannot entertain the thought with action and mull it around and debate it with yourself and see what you need to do next, what good is it? You can't entertain it. So what's my point in talking about that? All of the things you read, are you willing to allow them to read you? All of the things that you read and listen to, I listen to a different podcast, TED Talk, every single day while I'm walking. Every single day. Right, Doretha, is a part of our Clarity Mastermind. So whatever the subject is for the month, I listen to a TED Talk only on that subject. So for example, just imagine when we're in the 10 areas each month, I listen to a TED Talk for 30 days on that area. If it's spiritual, it's 30 days spiritual TED Talk. If it's family, it's 30 days spiritual, it's family TED Talk. If it's health, it's 30 days TED Talk, not just YouTube, but TED Talk YouTube for 30 days. If it's education, it's 30 days education TED Talk, regardless of what the subject is. And I was sharing, Galen, I know this is a masterclass, so bear with me.
Go ahead, masterclass.
When we talked about recreation, who thinks about recreation? What in the world is that? So I set a goal. At the beginning of the month, I listened to a recreation TED Talk every single day. But before I start, I said, what's my recreation goal during the month of recreation? This is how we convert the energy. What does it have to do with business? I'm thinking nothing, but I'm going to do it. I set a goal to visit a different park every single day for the month of recreation.
Hmm.
And guess what I learned? Out of 31 days, I visited a different park for 26 straight days, even while I was traveling. Whether I went to New York, whether I went to Chicago, whether I went to Atlanta, and my favorite park was the Centennial Park in Atlanta. My point is this: how do you transfer your energy in every single area of your life? It's not just about the money. It's not just about the business. So I just wanted to share that, Galen, because I'm very passionate about this
Yeah.
particular principle and and the reading in the area. And again, it does not have to be a lot of reading. But I could,
Yeah.
do this podcast by myself.
Well, hey,
See?
hey, I want us to start trying to land this plane. Dr. Peter, and after I want to give everyone also an opportunity. I'm going to make an offer to everyone to help me in pursuit of this award that Ann mentioned, being nominated for the Signal Awards, which is like the Grammys or the Oscars, but for podcasting. I want to give you that offer. But first, Peter, I want to give you the floor and ask you to share any final insights that you have. And then how can people get a hold of you? Because you've got your hands in almost in so many different things that might actually help them. So what's going on with you, and what final insights do you have?
Yeah, what a great conversation. As usual, not enough time for sure. So, can we have a plan B for our masterclass on this one for sure? Because I think there's even more to unpack, especially for our audience that we sometimes on a day-to-day basis, we don't see how we can solve that problem, how we are the solution to other people's problems, and how we may be able to communicate it more effectively, that they know that we are here for them. And we were talking before the show about someone that we admire who does that very, very well, communicates that process about from his perspective. Actually, it was Dr. Myron Golden. He does that so extremely well, communicates and pulls the audience in order to will allow them to put themselves in his shoes or vice versa, so that they can see what the bright future can potentially look like. And for those of you who don't know what your future could possibly look like, my name is Dr. Peter A. James. You can find me primarily on LinkedIn or at shiftyourmindset.com, of which I will help you to identify what the problem is that you seek and how to get there more expeditiously in various areas of your life, especially your business and your career. And if you're not quite sure what that might need to look like, you got to check out the Own Your Career Challenge that Galen had mentioned earlier for $97. Not just myself, but Galen and I will help you to uncover what owning your career will look like beginning today. I'll make sure that I put the link in the chat. Galen, this has been phenomenal.
It has, and this is the brainchild. This is the original brainchild of Miss Ann McNeil. So, Miss Ann, Master Wealth Builder, what insights have you gained from this conversation? What do you want to leave the audience with, and how can people get a hold of you if they want to get some one-on-one influence and support from you?
Galen, I would like to challenge everyone who's listening to this to take a month, doesn't matter which month it is, and reread this principle for 30 straight days. Doesn't matter when you start, just take 30 days and reread this principle. Because I believe that when you do that, you're going to find how you can best transmute your energy. That's what I'm learning from today's podcast. Because as I began to reread and to re-listen to this principle in preparation for today, I saw so many areas that I can continue to grow in. And you said something very powerful in that we all have something, and Dr. Peter also mentioned this, we all have something to share with our clients to help them have a better blank, whatever that blank is. But we're not for everybody. We're not for can I say that one more time? We are not for everybody. And I am am becoming bolder and being confident when I say, don't call me. If you're still trying to figure it out, I'm not for you. But if you're looking for clarity and how to profit in every area of your life, you can text the word "and" at 59925. Text the word "and," that's my name. You put that in the chat. But in the text box, you would text the number 59925. If you're looking for greater clarity and how to profit in every single area of your life, and your life is not your business, but your life is a business, you can connect with me. This has been an awesome podcast, and I agree with Dr. Peter James in the sense that, we always have other guests on, but seldom do we get a chance to do a master class and drill down into each of these principles in terms of our perspective and how we live it and how we actually exercise what the author is saying. So again, Master Wealth Builder, but you can text the number 59925 if you're interested in having a better quality of life.
All right, and there you have it. This has been an incredible show. I am reflecting on about 5 years ago. One of my more contemporary jazz favorites, Miss Layla Hathaway, was getting ready to do another album. She's going to remake some of her father's old songs, and she gave her listeners an opportunity to be a part of the project. If you crowdsourced and helped her fund the project, you could be listed on the album cover. You could be listed as a producer, an associate producer. And I just always thought that was fascinating that she gave everyone an opportunity to be part of the project. I want to offer you an opportunity to be part of this Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership podcast movement. The way that you can do that is by going to, we're going to put up this QR code. You can scan this QR code, vote for Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership to be the winner of the Self-Help Signal Award category. I'm going to also drop this link in the chat. Hold on one second. And by voting, you can vote one time per email address. The voting ends on October 17th. So you've got just a few more days to cast a vote. I'm gonna put this in the chat. And here we go. Put that in the chat. And then I'm also going to share a QR code and just ask you guys if you would support this podcast. I am having a lot of fun, but I am having a lot of fun recognizing that I'm helping a lot of people elevate their. So here's the QR code. Here's the QR code. So you can be a part of this process by scanning that QR code, clicking that link, casting your vote for Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership to be the winner of the Signal Award, Listener's Choice Award in the category of self-improvement. The last time I checked, we are trailing behind Mel Robbins. And we are also trailing behind Therapy for Black Girls, some pretty significant podcasts, quite honestly, that I've listened to and have appreciated. But this movement is about you, the listener, and I would be so honored if you were to cast that vote. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing now. A great conversation. This has been a deep dive into the principle of the mystery of sex transmutation as articulated and developed by Napoleon Hill in the book Think and Grow Rich. I'm going to encourage you to join us each and every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time when we will deep dive into yet another principle. We got so many of our Wyman Wimbush. I'm going to end with his words because these are phenomenal. He says, if thoughts are the genius of all fortune, we should become just as uncomfortable with the notion of a fleeting thought as we are with the notion of fleeting fortune. Love that. That's why he's the wisdom broker. I mean, that was just a throwaway comment. So absolutely. So with that, I want to wish everyone a great Saturday and hope that you join us next Saturday, where we will again encourage you to think and grow rich. Until next time, take care.